I'm Judy Gersh. I'm a patient of Dr. Asamoah with Zazen Medical Group. My experience was just probably one of the best experiences of my life. Having Dr. Asamoah as my doctor, and the level of care and patience and listening that she did with me with my case was probably one of the best doctor-patient experiences I've ever had. To really sum it up, she really saved my life. She really dug deep until we found out what my underlying condition was, and then we made a plan and we got treatment, and I'm here today because of her. The primary reason I came to Dr. Asamoah, I'd been to several other doctors with my case history, which started out quite a few years ago with a lot of GI problems as far as from constipation to chronic diarrhea. And when I came to her, I was kind of at my end of my journey. I didn't know where else to go. And I needed some help. I had seen another functional medicine doctor, and while she was very good, but she just kept pumping me full of supplements which weren't working. And I wasn't getting the full nutrition into my body, which was then putting me into chronic fatigue. And Dr. Asamoah, we just kind of looked at all this, just like, well, what are you even taking all this stuff for? What is it really doing for you? And after we were scoped, and then she found I had microscopic lymphocytic colitis, which then gave us a true treatment plan to help me. And then as we were kind of getting that under control, then we found that I had a neuroendocrine tumor, which are very rare. There's only about 12,000 of those diagnosed per year, and I'm one of those lucky ones that have that. So while that really wasn't, because they're so rare, there's just not a lot of history as far as how to treat that, but we started a protocol of what she knew that needed to be done as far as the different scans, and each scan we would look and then what do we need to do next. And eventually I actually just got the tumor removed about 8 weeks ago at a specialist out of state that we had to go to. But again, it was because of her and her diligence and just working down that path. That's what makes her such a great doctor, and that's why I'm so happy to be here as her patient. Probably Zazen offered me the peace of mind that I finally had found the right place to treat me for my medical issues, and just the patient care that they have. You know, having that portal that they can reach out and they can email you and you can have that conversation, or you can pick up that phone and call and connect with either Dr. Asamoah or her assistant. A lot of doctors they just don't offer that service anymore. I mean, it's very much you come in, you got seen, you know, we were there for 10 minutes, you're in and out, and you're done until whenever your next follow-up appointment is. And here at Zazen, it's not that way. I mean, they spend the time with you that you need in order to better understand what your underlying problem is. You just don't get the pill to help the top layer of the problem. You actually dig down until you find the underlying problem. My biggest takeaway with Zazen is I'm going to go back and say it's really Dr. Asamoah. I mean, it's her level of expertise and her knowledge and her care and taking time with the patient that has made all the difference for me.
If you knew of someone who was on the fence that you knew had GI issues, how would you recommend them to the Zazen Clinic?
I would recommend them to the Zazen Clinic because having went to other GI doctors, and then when you come here, there's just it's a different class of service. It really is. What I would tell someone to recommend them to come here is that having been to other GI doctors, there's really no comparison. I mean, coming here to see Dr. Asamoah with Zazen Clinic it's a world-class difference to come here to be treated versus going to another GI doctor. I mean, the care and the listening to the patient and taking the interest and ordering the tests that need to be done, it's done here. You can give your same symptoms to another doctor and it's like, oh, okay, here's a pill. There's just a different level of care here that you can't get anywhere else. I think really just to sum up my experience with Dr. Asamoah and Zazen is just the level of care and the patience and listening and taking that interest in the patient. And again, I'm sitting here today because we found my tumor early, and if it wasn't for her and being here and being under her care, I wouldn't be sitting here today telling you of my experience. I really wouldn't be. She really saved my life. I had a rare tumor that there's only about 12,000 diagnosed a year, and it's a DNA tumor. It's not an environmental tumor, and we were being treated. I was being treated for something else. Obviously the colitis, and I came in one time. I just had this pressure and I couldn't figure it out. And she's like, "Well, that's really odd. You've never complained about that." And I said, "Yeah, well, I had all these other problems going on, and now that it's kind of slowed down, and now I have this." And, she kind of felt around. She's like, "Well, it's probably nothing, but let's do a CT scan." And the CT scan showed this tumor. And then then you go for your MRI. And then the next step is we did a endoscopic biopsy, which then showed what it was, the type of tumor. And we didn't think it had metastasized, but you're never really sure with these things. And then we had to do it's a Gallium PET scan, which has only been out for 2 years, which really kind of shows where the tumor sits, as well as if there's any particles that have kind of broken off. And so we did that, and so then the next step was like, wow, you really have this, and what do you do next? What's your treatment? And so unfortunately in Houston, the city of medicine, which I actually worked for the medical center, there wasn't anyone who could help me, so I went out of state, which I showed her where I wanted to go and why. And we were talking about it just a little while ago, and she's like, I actually referred someone else there not too long ago. And so, what she said, which was really very interesting, is that, well, I came to her for care, but she also learned a lot from me just as we were having those conversations, which, again, how often do you find a doctor that you can have that relationship with? So that's what really makes it pretty special. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.